Hi guys, welcome to Brandix Reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about the Star Wars trilogy, the original Star Wars trilogy, the Star Wars Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi films that came out from 1977 to 1983. Now I've done numerous videos on the Star Wars films, not just like news about the upcoming stuff, but talked about the original films in various different ways. But this one I'm just going to generally talk about the films, not any specific version of them, and just kind of cover the whole thing, and also my memories and experience of it. And this video is in the context of, from my point of view as I'm talking about this, tomorrow is the day that the Star Wars Force Awakens film gets released. Today is the 16th of December 2015, so it's a date that we've been looking forward to for a long time. Originally it was going to be December the 18th, but, you know, that's kind of a side issue. So I'm very hyped about this. Now, I've just watched the trilogy, the original trilogy, so it's very fresh in my memory. So, where can I begin now? Again, I'm not talking about any specific version because there's lots of different ones. Now, I've talked about this previously, but let's just kind of go over the history of it a little bit. There's the old videotape versions. There's numerous different but editions of this that you can get. This isn't one complete collection as such. I think this one was from 1991. This is the first Star Wars film. And then there were some kind of mid-90s ones as well, all in widescreen as well, which was kind of a big deal in the 90s. A lot of TV, well, all TVs pretty much by then was square. So having something widescreen was kind of, it was a acquired taste, I guess, whereas today, it gets with widescreen, it fits your widescreen TV, because pretty much now, all TVs are widescreen. But it was a big issue back then, so it's kind of part of the history of it, that it was marketed in such a way. It was very prominent on a lot of the ways that they marketed these, because some people did like the widescreen format, because they understood that is the way the film is supposed to be presented in a cinema, on a cinema screen. People like my parents hated them. They would not watch anything widescreen, like, oh, I don't like the black bars. It's like, it's a film. That's kind of, if you're watching it in square, it cuts bits of the picture off. So that's kind of the history of the whole widescreen thing with Star Wars. Now, these are effectively the last versions, I think particularly these ones with this kind of a cover, were the last ones that you could own, which were effectively the pre-97 special editions. So all those changes that they made in 97, in my opinion, most of them were for the better, but there were some pretty bad ones as well. They changed a few things for the worse. Greedo shooting first, for example. A few other minor things. So if that really offends you, the only ones that you can legitimately own are these on tape. Now you can get the original cuts on DVD in very bad quality, and again they're square, so it's very difficult to watch anything prior to the 97 special editions. Now the 97 special editions were the 20th anniversary of Star Wars, which was obviously 1997. And they came out at the cinema, and then a few months later came out on videotape in a box set. And you got these, and these are the ones that, again, like I say, had the first time that they really changed things. They had a lot of the amendments that they'd made with Greedo shooting first and a few other things. But again, like I say, most of the changes, in my opinion, were for the better. And most of the changes were actually made to the original Star Wars film. Now, that was in 97. DVDs kind of came out around about then. I think it was like 97, 98, 99. I got my first player in 99, I remember that. My first DVD player. And for a lot of years, people were saying, Star Wars, we want to see Star Wars on DVD in a lot better quality than these old videotapes, because it's not an attractive proposition watching films like that on videotape. So there was a big kind of thing to get Star Wars released. From the beginning, when DVDs, people started buying them. I think 2000 was a very big year for DVDs. You started seeing them massively in the shops, and the prices were a lot more reasonable by 2000. So why weren't they out yet? And in 2000, 2001 came, 2002, 2003, then 2004. Finally, we got the first ever DVD box set of Star Wars, the trilogy. Now they did have the prequels were kind of new at this point, and they were coming out. They did get released on DVD as and when, but that original trilogy, like I said, was a long wait, and it wasn't until 2004, which was just shortly before Revenge of the Sith came out. So this was the box set that you got, and again in 2004 there were some changes that they made on top of the ones they made in the 97 cuts, but they were effectively the same thing. The quality was quite good. I remember the day this came out, it was September 2004, I specifically remember it. And I took the week off work, and I remember saying, I'm watching these films. I actually bought a TV and a surround sound system, especially in anticipation of this coming out, because it was like such a big deal to me. I was such a big Star Wars fan. And I actually that day said, right, I'm unplugging the phone, I'm locking myself in my bedroom. I still lived with my parents at this time. I was like in my early 20s. And I was a Star Wars fan, so, you know. Anyway, so yeah, I just sat down and watched these uninterrupted, like switch off the phone, to the computer off, all that stuff. So that was it. So 2004 anyway. Now the next time we had editions of these come out was actually 2011, which was a Blu-ray set where they made even more changes. Again, I'm not going to talk specifically about all the changes, but there were a few of them, like the bit where Darth Vader picks up the Emperor and throws him down that shaft. Originally in the film, he just picked him up, threw him, didn't say a word. This new one, he picks him up and goes, no, and does it, which kind of makes sense, to be honest. As much as a lot of people kind of balked at that, I can see why they would do it. It makes sense that he would do it, so I'm not too fussed about that. But so I think any kind of suggestion of changing anything in Star Wars from now on is very much met with opposition, basically. Now, there is the despecialised editions of the original trilogy that you can get illegitimately, maybe even illegally, but that's something that you can get that's out there. I don't own it. I'd be interested to see it, because I've just watched these films and I watched the Blu-ray versions. I would be interested to watch the despecialised versions. So I don't know if ever some kind of like market and somebody's got some going. I might take them up on it, but for now they do exist. Let's just put it that way. And they've done a lot of things just to re-show you the original films in high def as well. Because this, as much as people have complained, and I've complained about the Blu-ray set, it is really good quality. And at the moment, this is my favourite version of the film series, the favourite way to watch it. Because Blu-ray is high def when you watch it on a good screen. So that's pretty much it anyway for the different versions. Now, my kind of thoughts about the film franchise, I was born in 1981, so I kind of grew up in the aftermath of Star Wars coming out, pretty much when it was on its way out, when it wasn't the trendy thing anymore, particularly the toys. Me being a kid, I received a lot of these for Christmas and so on. I got a lot of happy memories of getting Star Wars toys. So I think it was one of the things where, because particularly from 1985 onwards, I believe the sales of toys kind of went down a bit, and a lot of the toys that were actually released that year were actually rarer because they didn't make as many, because they weren't selling as many, and they were known as the Last 17, so the Last 17 range of Star Wars figures. So that's kind of what I grew up in. A lot of it was more about the toys than it was the films itself, and it wasn't until really the early to mid-90s when I was kind of age 10 onwards, you kind of start to get a better idea of what's going on in the world around you, and good versus evil, all that kind of stuff, which is very much what Star Wars is about. So I think by that time, by sort of the early to mid-90s, I could really appreciate, you know, Darth Vader's just not this big scary man. He represents something that a lot of people can relate to, and the whole story of good versus evil, like I say, is something from a certain age onwards. I mean, kids from a younger age than 10 can understand it, don't get me wrong, but you can really appreciate it as you get older. So something in it for everybody, this film trilogy, and it was definitely something that left an impression on just the movie industry as a whole, not just the sci-fi industry, but everything. It really changed a lot of things. I mean, a James Bond franchise, for example, was one that was a bit of a game changer, but Star Wars had its impact on that. I mean, if you go back to The Spy Who Loved Me, which came out in 1977, James Bond film with Roger Moore, same year as Star Wars, at the end of that film it says James Bond will return in For Your Eyes Only. But because of the success of Star Wars, they thought, well, the whole space thing is like a big deal, so they said, right, well, we'll kind of put off For Your Eyes Only, we'll have Moonraker as the next film. And a lot of what you see in that film is clearly kind of lending from Star Wars and the genre that was a massive success at the time. Because up till that point, it was really things like 2001: A Space Odyssey that were your real kind of big sci-fi films. But you had films like Alien coming out. I mean, Ridley Scott has said himself, massively inspired visually by Star Wars. You had Star Trek, which started its movie franchise the same year as Alien, and again you can see a lot of the look of Star Trek. It was kind of revamped when you compare it to the TV series, which you're obviously going to get when you take TV to the big screen. It's going to be revamped, but you could see the influence from Star Wars on Star Trek. Which is really great. Which is kind of ironic now because you've got J.J. Abrams, who's done the revamped Star Trek and is now revamping Star Wars effectively. It's kind of comes around in circles, I guess. So the film franchises, anyway, as a whole, of the original trilogy was really just something that left an impression on many generations. It wasn't just, as I say, I come to this from a kid's point of view, growing up with Star Wars, but I think a lot of people were older than that, and really changed the way they kind of looked at themselves and that kind of stuff, which is kind of bullshit, really, because the whole thing about the Force, at face value, anyway, is nonsense. I mean, you can talk about the laws of attraction, all that kind of stuff, which I do believe in. What you put out, you get back. So again, there's many different layers to it, but watching this, I think, really kind of resonated with a lot of people in a spiritual way. So again, its influence on the individual, not just pop culture and the industry, is really massive. So now I was going to talk about these films one at a time, like I did with the prequel trilogy, but I just thought, well, I can talk about the whole thing. Now, Star Wars, the first film, I guess, in a lot of ways, it kind of was overshadowed by the sequels, like Terminator, I guess. Terminator 2, should I say. Kind of Terminator 1 was very good, but the second one was massively just overshadowed it. Similar to Batman, the Dark Knight trilogy. You look at the original Star Wars film, it's like Batman Begins. Great film when it came out, and that had its effects on the superhero genre, I guess. But then when the Dark Knight came out, like The Empire Strikes Back, like Terminator 2, just massively overshadowed it, and it's just, well, we love that original film, but the second one is a lot better. And some people think Return of the Jedi is their favourite. I mean, there's no right or wrong, it's all subjective. You might think Attack of the Clones is the best one. Get that checked out if you think that's the case. But no, I mean, I kind of have thought that in the past. I like Return of the Jedi most because it's got a happy ending to it. It's really positive. I don't know, maybe other minor things like the special effects were slightly better in that film than any of the others. So I don't know if that's even true, but we're looking back, I think now, I think Empire Strikes Back is probably my favourite. It's kind of in the middle. It's not the beginning of the story. It's not the end of the story. So I don't really know. I mean, Empire Strikes Back. Let's kind of talk about that. It was one where I think at the time sequels weren't really expected to be as massive as this one was, I guess. I mean, you had your film franchises and you had sequels that obviously outdid the previous films, but I think this was your big blockbuster franchise at this point. It wasn't just a kind of a one-hit wonder. At this point, you were getting a film franchise which then kind of spawned a lot of other things off. You had like Ghostbusters and a lot of these other film series in the 80s that were massive. So it wasn't just about, a big film gets released, and So it was Empire Strikes Back anyway. It was one of the ultimate sequels, if you ask general kind of movie, people that are into movies, for an example of a sequel that outdid the original, a lot of people will use Empire Strikes Back as a shining example. Return of the Jedi, like I say, some people think that's the best one. It's up to you. I mean, I've thought that at times. Kind of like the Dark Knight trilogy. I think it's one where a lot of people do like it, but it's not as good as the second one. But that's not a bad thing because the second one is excellent. So you're not really saying I didn't like it. You're just saying it was good, but it wasn't as good. But it's a very high standard, so you can still love it. I kind of feel that way about The Dark Knight Rises, I guess. I mean, I love that film. A lot of people hated it. So again, it's all subjective. There's no right or wrong. but I didn't think it was as good as The Dark Knight. So similar to Return of the Jedi, not saying anything bad about it. It was just not quite as good as that excellent high standard. It was still a good standard though. So that's the original trilogy anyway. So I'll pretty much shut up because I could just ramble on. Now tomorrow, like I say, Force Awakens is coming out. So this is the kind of context that I'm talking about this in. I'm in anticipation of that, and I've been waiting a long time for this film to come out. Seriously, I remember it was like 3 years ago when they announced that Disney had taken over Lucasfilm. Not just that, but when they announced that, at the same time they said, by the way, there's a new trilogy coming, and likely other films as well. So I at first wasn't really impressed. I was just like, I am not going to watch them because of the prequels. I was just burned by the prequels. In fact, you can watch mine and my co-reviewer, The Core. You can watch our reviews from 2 years ago when we reviewed the Blu-ray set, which I didn't buy for like 2 years after it came out because I was just really off Star Wars at the time. It's kind of like when you've been going out with a girl and you've been like maybe cheated on or something, and it just puts you off relationships for a while. It's just like I don't care. I'm just not interested. I'm gonna get burned again. It's kind of like that with Star Wars. We just felt, unless there was something that really grabbed us about the concept of it, we weren't interested. But as time came on, we heard a lot of good, positive things that sounded fairly promising, like J.J. Abrams being the director. They're getting the original cast back. They're taking it very seriously. They're publicly admitting, well, not admitting because they don't have to admit it because they weren't involved with the prequels, but some filmmakers were saying, we aren't going to be going down the same road that they went with the prequels. And they got into specifics as well. They didn't just say it's not going to be rubbish. They went into specifics. No Jar Jar, for example. Practical effects, that kind of stuff. They're getting Lawrence Kasdan on as the story writer who wrote Empire Strikes Back. Did a great job of that. Just little things like that were coming out. I was thinking I could possibly change my mind about the prequel. The prequels, no, the sequels when they come out. But yeah, so I think that kind of came along. Trailer came out last November 2014. Didn't really show us much. Gave us a taste, and it tasted good. Then in April we saw that trailer with Han Solo in it. That seriously impressed a lot of people, including myself, and I was just hyped about that. That was in the Star Wars celebration event took place, and that was streamed live. And I've spoken about that in a separate video, but again, it just shows the kind of positive impact on me of the Star Wars franchise. I was in a really bad place at the time. I was not to get too personal, but I was in a bit of a relationship dilemma. It was somebody I'd been on and off with for a while, and I was really kind of hurting because we pretty much split up anyway. It was a Friday night, I think it was Thursday or Friday night, and I was kind of bummed out about it. And then the Star Wars stuff came on, and the trailer, and just my worries were just gone. It was like Star Wars, and so yeah, that was again just a really kind of positive thing. So this film now coming out is to say it's highly anticipated. It really is, I think, to a lot of people, because it's one of them franchises. It's such a big part of people's life and who they are and all that kind of stuff. I think people say it's more than just a film. It is and it isn't. It's more than that, and it's an experience, and people bring different things to this, I guess. I mean, I personally prefer films like James Bond films to Star Wars, but they don't have the same impact. I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's very hard to describe. So we'll see anyway. We'll see tomorrow when the film comes out. And I'm going to review it separately. So if you're watching this video and the film's kind of imminently out, unlikely because I don't get that many viewers, but you come back and there's going to be a non-spoiler review and probably a spoiler review as well. I'm going to get my co-reviewer on this as well because I know he's going to be wanting to talk about this. So for now, I'm going to leave it there and say just really excited about this new film and hoping that it's going to bring back the magic of the original trilogy, because that's been lacking. We haven't seen a good Star Wars film since 1983. I know that's a very opinionated comment to make, but I think a lot of people will relate to that statement and will agree with that statement. So 1983, that's before like Ghostbusters came out. That's before like Back to the Future existed. It's been a long time since they've picked this story up. So do it justice, guys. Let's just say that. I think they're gonna. Right, I'm seriously rambling now, so we'll sign off there and say this is my last video before The Force Awakens comes out. So next time you see this face on Brand X Reviews, I will probably be talking about Star Wars The Force Awakens. So for now, I'm going to say thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
The Force, it's calling to you. Just let it in.
Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Just so you know, for more news, reviews and retrospectives, you can like our page on Facebook, simply called Brand X Reviews. But as well as that, you can also subscribe to us on YouTube via this video. You can also bookmark our website, which is brandxreviews.com, which is pretty much a central hub for everything that I've just mentioned. So check that out, and we will see you next time. Thank you very much.